Tracy Sabol. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, a majority sealed. Democrats retain a U.S. Senate seat in Georgia. We have reaction and analysis. Hawaii remembrance. President Joe Biden honors the date which lives in infamy. Defending human rights. A former NBA star is recognized for standing tall. We speak with Enes Freedom. And trusting God's goodness. Pope Francis teaches about a sure way to find freedom from sin. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you so much for being with us on this feast of St. Ambrose of Milan. Our top story tonight, a recent study says the Catholic population in the United States is growing and moving toward the south. In a survey released last month, the U.S. Religion Census says there are 2 million more Catholics than 10 years ago. The overall number is around 62 million. The study also found in Missouri and Virginia there are now more Catholics than Southern Baptists, while the U.S. Religion Census is released every 10 years. A judge has sealed records related to a report on clergy sexual abuse in the state of Maryland. The ruling comes after a request from a group of people named in the report but not accused of misconduct. The Archdiocese of Baltimore says that it does not oppose the release of the findings. While the voters in the Peach State have spoken, incumbent Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock will be returning to the Senate for 6 more years. The win over Republican candidate Herschel Walker also gives Democrats an extra vote starting in January. All right, let's check in now with Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales, who joins us now from Atlanta, Georgia, with the latest. Eric.
Well, good evening, Tracy. All you can say is what a night. It was literally like watching a horse race in the Kentucky Derby. The lead changed several times throughout the night. It took nearly 4 hours after the polls closed. At around 11 o'clock, Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock was declared the projected winner. He then headed off to the stage to thank the voters in Georgia.
It is my honor to utter the 4 most powerful words ever spoken in a democracy. The people have spoken.
And spoken they did. On Election Day alone, a record 1.4 million Georgians went to the polls after nearly 2 million more voted early. Senator Warnock thanked those who stood in long lines and claimed the Republican tricks didn't work.
Doesn't mean that voter suppression does not exist. It simply means that you, the people, have decided that your voices will not be silenced.
In a concession speech, political newcomer Herschel Walker thanked God for the opportunity and then went on to say,
but one of the things I want to tell all of you is you never stop dreaming. I don't want any of you to stop dreaming. I don't want any of you to stop believing in America. I want you to believe in America and continue to believe in the Constitution and believe in our elected officials most of all.
During the campaign, both candidates received a substantial amount of outside help from national organizations. The finger pointing among Republicans is already starting. Some claim the GOP didn't do enough financially to help the Walker campaign. According to an ad impact analysis, Warnock's campaign spent $57.7 million, while Walker's campaign spent less than half that at just over $27 million. Others say former President Trump's endorsement didn't help. Back on Capitol Hill, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer wasted little time welcoming Senator Warnock back.
After 1 year, 10 months, and 17 days of the longest 50-50 Senate in history, 51, a slim majority. That is great.
Senator Warnock's victory certainly takes the pressure off the Democratic Party for future legislative purposes. They don't have to rely so much on Democratic moderates like Kristen Sinema or Joe Manchin. Bottom line, it was a major win for Democrats as they look to the 2024 election. And for Republicans on the other side, it's a wake-up call. From Atlanta, Georgia, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
President Joe Biden says that he called Senator Warnock to congratulate him on his victory. He also tweeted that Georgia voters stood up for democracy by rejecting an ultra-MAGA agenda. White House correspondent Owen Jensen continues our team coverage tonight. Owen.
Tracy, good evening to you. The win by Senator Warnock is obviously a win for the Biden administration as well, and Vice President Kamala Harris won't be called on as frequently to break tie votes in the Senate.
In this picture, President Joe Biden is seen congratulating Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock on the phone. The lawmaker's victory ensures Democrats will have an outright majority in the Senate for the rest of President Biden's term.
What you saw Senator Warnock do and what you saw Democrats do this past election is run on the president's agenda, run on an agenda that was successful.
Meanwhile, Second Gentleman Douglas Emhoff and White House officials hold a roundtable with Jewish leaders representing the Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox denominations, discussing what the Biden administration calls the rise of anti-Semitism and efforts to combat hate in our nation. Just the other day in New York, a Jewish father and his son attacked by a man with a BB gun. The suspect has reportedly been charged with assault as a hate crime.
But right now, it's right in our face. What's happening now is it's visceral, it's real. And that's why this is so personal to me.
The White House did not hold any comparable roundtables when Catholic churches and pro-life centers were being vandalized and attacked in the midst of the Supreme Court's abortion decision. Also today, the Biden administration remembers the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor 81 years ago. A quiet Sunday morning shattered by enemy planes and bombs, and suddenly the nation is violently thrust into war. The National Park Service held a commemoration at the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. And President Biden tweeted, "We honor those whose lives were cut short that tragic morning," adding, "We do not break and we never back down."
Meanwhile, tonight, President Biden scheduled a trip over to St. Mark's Episcopal Church in D.C. to attend the annual National Vigil for all victims of gun violence. In Chicago this past weekend, 17 people were shot, according to media reports. The weekend before that, 31 people were shot. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
And joining us now with her insights is political strategist Jenny Sevilla-Korn. Jenny, thank you so much for coming back on. We really appreciate it. I want to get back to the Georgia election, a really tight race, as you know, but in the end, Warnock won. What do you think went wrong for Herschel Walker? Was it the messaging, the funding, or lack thereof? Was it the candidate? What do you think?
Well, good evening, Tracy. Thank you for having me on again. What we have to really look at is that this race was very close. It was decided by less than 3 percentage points. So don't let the Democrats fool you that this was a big blowout. So it's a very close race. Brian Kemp put his whole campaign team behind Herschel Walker, but it just wasn't enough. I have 2 words for the Republican Party: early voting. We need to get better at it. We need to make sure that we're getting our people out early, because that is money in the bank before the election. Herschel Walker was just not able to get enough Republicans out on election day to vote. And you can't ever count on that, right? There's weather, people have appointments, people are late to work. There's a million things that could happen for voters. And so if the Democrats are getting their votes in early, we need to beat them at their game.
I want to go kind of beyond the Senate now. Talk about the White House. As you know, Walker is yet another Trump-backed candidate who didn't cross the finish line. What do you think that says, if anything, about the former president's 2024 prospects?
Right. I'm tired of hearing the excuses about who endorses who. In the end, the candidate is what matters, and the candidate is the one that has to, they're the ones whose name is on the ballot, and they have to get their ground game together. And in the end, Herschel Walker's team just came up short. So endorsements, some of them went through, some of them didn't, but really the candidate matters, and how much money you raise. And as we see it now, Republicans need to do early voting and make sure that we get mail-in ballots before Election Day.
Jenny, I want to talk now about President Biden and his son, both under the microscope, as you know, for the Twitter Hunter Biden laptop saga as it continues to unfold. Do you think the president sees the results of this election as sort of a rallying cry to press on, full steam ahead in 2024? What do you think?
Right. So President Biden has been running for re-election since he won his first election. People who speculate that he didn't want to run, he's always wanted to be president. He's wanted to be president the whole time he was in the Senate. And the biggest indicator of that is President Biden trying to move the South Carolina primary up before Iowa and New Hampshire. Why would he do that? Well, the reason is because he won South Carolina, and that's what put him over the edge to actually catapult him to the presidency. So I believe he has decided that he's going to run 2 years ago.
Sticking with President Biden, I want to get your take on a comment that he made yesterday when he said he has more important things to do than to visit the southern border. Your reaction?
I wish I had an hour to talk to you about that, because I can't even fathom that statement. He said he had more important things to do than visit the border. He's gone to ice cream shops. I don't know how many times he's gone to Delaware. He doesn't have time to go visit the border. It is the president's sole responsibility and his administration to take care and secure our nation at that border. Just like a president would go down for a natural disaster to see what's on the ground and talk to the people on the ground, the border is something that needs to go be visited so that he could see for his own eyes what's happening and talk to the border agents. I went down to the Rio Grande Valley just a few months ago, and I was talking to Border Patrol agents, and they are demoralized. They don't believe that President Biden backs them up. So I hope it gets important on his agenda, because it's his sole responsibility to take care of this.
And Jenny, before I let you go, any final thoughts, anything else you have your eye on?
I think that the Republican Party, I already see it, is kind of looking to what happened in November, and now they're going to see what happened just yesterday. And I think, early voting, mail-in ballots, how do we make sure we get the vote out in the right places? Because the voters are there, Republicans are there. We just need to get them out and get them out before Election Day.
Well, Jenny Sevilla-Korn, always a pleasure. Great to get your insights.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
You too. And we have a lot more still to come here on EWTN News Nightly, including an award given for raising awareness about injustice. We speak with a recent recipient of this year's Lantos Human Rights Prize, and new developments in China's severe coronavirus lockdown. Thanks for staying with us. From professional basketball player to human rights activist, tonight basketball great Enes Freedom is set to receive the 2022 Lantos Human Rights Prize. The former Boston Celtics center is known for his public criticism of human rights abuses in China and beyond. And Enes Freedom joins us tonight with more on his story. Enes, great to see you again, and congratulations on the award. That's wonderful. I know that you are well aware of all the risks of speaking up on your beliefs. Can you tell us more about your personal story for those who are not familiar?
Some of the things that are happening in my country obviously pushed me to be an activist, I will say. There was a corruption scandal happened in Turkey back in 2013, and President Erdogan and some of his family members were involved in it. And that was actually the first time I said something about it. And it became a conversation because of the NBA platform. After that, even one simple tweet can affect this much. I was like, from now on, I'm going to be more vocal about what's going on in my country more. So I started to talk, and the things that I talk about are obviously affecting me and my family, because when you're dealing with these authoritarian regimes, dictatorships, and brutal regimes, I will say they're going to do everything they can to silence you. So, unfortunately, my dad was a scientist and he got fired from his job. My sister went to medical school for 6 years and she still cannot find a job. I think the saddest one was my little brother, because he was playing basketball and he literally got kicked out of every team because of the same last name. So they were getting affected so much, they had to put a statement out there and said, we are disowning us publicly. The letter is still out there on the internet. The Turkish government didn't believe that. They sent police to my house in Turkey and they raided the whole house and they took every electronics away, phones, computers, laptops, iPads, because they wanted to see if I am still in contact with my family or not. But they couldn't find no evidence, but they still took my dad in jail for a while.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all of that with with us. And I know that you've been a really huge advocate for the Uyghur Muslims in China. I want to get your thoughts on all the protests that have been taking place over there in the communist country.
It's whenever I see people are risking their lives, people are risking their freedom to fight against these most brutal dictatorships in the world, like Iran, like China, like Russia. It just gives me so much hope for the future. And people are asking and saying is enough is enough. We want our freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of protest, and freedom of movement, and people are saying enough is enough. So now I see all these protesters, brave protesters, are, like risking everything they have to go out there and say enough, So whenever I saw the protesters in Iran and in Russia and China, I was like, this is the beginning of something so beautiful, and I'm so happy to see those protesters, and I'm actually praying for them every night.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit more about Iran and the World Cup. We saw the protests because of Mahsa Amini prior to the World Cup, but then also we saw watching the World Cup, some of the soccer team, they refused to sing the Iranian national anthem, and then also people who went back or were in the country were cheering on the United States, and they suffered consequences for that as well. Touch on that and your thoughts on that.
First of all, I want to give a huge shout out to all the brave women that protested in Iran. My prayers and support with you every night, every day. But I believe, athletes plays a very important role in our society, because once you're an athlete, you have millions of followers. You can especially inspire millions of young generation and kids out there. So that's why whenever I see an athlete taking a stand for what they believe in, it gives me so much hope and courage also. Whenever I see these videos on the internet that these innocent women are on the streets, are getting, beaten up and getting tortured, it just breaks my heart. It shatters my heart. So we have to do whatever we can. It's not only their job, but it's on everybody's job to just support them and be with them. So we have to do whatever we can to put pressure on the Iranian government, the Russian government, and Chinese government to, just step down, I guess.
And before I let you go, Enes, what's next for you? I know the last time you and I talked, you were talking about doing a basketball camp at the Vatican.
And my only goal is to bring people together from different backgrounds, different religions, different colors, different culture. So I started to organize these basketball camps for kids where I bring Muslims, Christians, and Jewish kids together to play basketball. We don't talk about no conflict. We don't talk about no wars. We only focus on basketball, because it is so amazing to see these kids whenever I put them in the same team, they are learning from each other. They are learning how to communicate together. They are learning how to share together. They are learning how to win and lose together.
Oh, I love it. That is so beautiful. And Enes, thank you so much again for talking with us. Thank you for all that you do. Congratulations on your award again, and God bless you. Up next on EWTN News Nightly, the Netherlands has a new ambassador to the Holy See. Learn more about her visit with the Holy Father and how the church is doing in her home country. Plus, an update on a Greek Orthodox church in Manhattan destroyed on 9/11. We are back tonight. China says that it will relax some of its coronavirus lockdown policies.
疫苗接种的普及，防控经验的积累，我国疫情防控面临。
In a dramatic change, new guidelines were issued today. Officials cite a weakening of the Omicron variant. The revised rules reduce some mandatory testing. The changes come amid recent protests and demands for the communist country's president to resign. Pope Francis reminds the faithful that there is a way to find freedom from sin.
Solo Dio sa che cosa è veramente buono per noi.
At his weekly talk to pilgrims at the Vatican, the Holy Father says that we should offer to God the habits in our life that are hardest to give up. Pope Francis said only God knows what is truly good for us, and he wants to cure us from unhealthy attachments. The Kingdom of the Netherlands has a new ambassador to the Holy See, and Mika Rohak has served in diplomatic roles around the world, including in Australia, Hong Kong, and most recently, New York City. She represents a country of around 17 million people. Roughly 20% are Catholic. We go now to Mika Rohak, Ambassador of the Netherlands to the Holy See. Madam Ambassador, thank you so much for your time today, and congratulations on your new post. As we mentioned, you recently presented your credentials to the Holy Father. What was that experience like?
Oh, that was an experience unlike any other experience I've ever had. It is already so impressive to walk through the old historic corridors of the Apostolic Palace with all these history around you. And then you go into the room where the Holy Father is waiting, and it was just an amazing encounter.
I know your embassy organized an exhibit at the Vatican called Book Boom. Tell us more about that.
That's an exhibition organized of books made by a well-known Dutch bookmaker who is called Irma Boom in Dutch. Boom you pronounce it boom in English. Boom means tree in Dutch, by the way. And she has been coming to the Vatican Library for quite some time now to study the old historical documents that are there. And she is inspired by that. And over time, she and the people at the library came up with the idea to show that inspiration, to show how her new modern books are being inspired by these old historic documents. So they're lying side by side, books made by Irma Boom and the old historical books of the library. And it's an amazing exhibition. It will run until the end of February. So if you ever have a chance to come to Rome in that time, I would really recommend that.
Yeah, it sounds incredible. I want to switch gears slightly. Can you talk to us about how the Catholic Church is doing in the Netherlands? We know that the Dutch bishops just had their regular scheduled meeting with the Holy Father.
Yes, they had. They had I think the second week of November, they were here for their Ad Limina visit. And as all bishops do, I think prior to that visit, they drew up a report about the situation of the Catholic Church in the Netherlands. And, you know, officially about 20% of the Dutch population identifies as Roman Catholic. But it should be admitted that only a small fraction of them really go to church regularly. So the Roman Catholic Church in the Netherlands is working in a highly secular state, and has its challenges because of that. So they are anticipating that the church will become even smaller in the near future. So the bishops are looking at measures to keep the church viable. That means that parishes will be merged probably, and also because of less capacity in personnel and finances, probably churches will have to be closed. But although they may be small, they are very optimistic about the fact that from this small island, one should say, they can still get into contact with Dutch society, with the state, with all other aspects of life, and also with other representatives and people of other beliefs and other Christians' beliefs also. And they have had very good meetings with all representative all the dicasteries here during their visit also with the Holy Father. And they said they were very much encouraged by their visits in going on along this path.
Well, Madam Ambassador, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. We appreciate it. And again, congratulations to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Finally tonight, a Greek Orthodox church in New York that was destroyed during the September 11th terror attacks has reopened. St. Nicholas Church and Shrine hosted its first liturgy last night. The rebuilding lasted more than 2 decades and cost around $95 million. The church overlooks the Trade Center memorial pools. Inside, it includes icons of some of the heroes of September 11th. And we thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sabol. Good night and God bless.